see the way they hate. And I know better than to listen to the people who are calling us slaves. I can feel the sun shining.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Brian, and today is Thursday, July 18th, 2024, and this is episode 744 of the Lots Project podcast, and it's titled A Trip to Shiloh. I'll be chatting about a great adventure to Shiloh Battlefield National Park and more trouble with restaurants. A little bit more, see what we get into. First, let's take a look in the live chat, see who's hanging out in the coffee crew. Grab a cup and hang out for about an hour. Good morning. Good morning. Seems like StreamYard's messing with me again today. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard. It's I really just don't know. But anyway, I don't know if we're going over to Twitch there. We'll see if Hunter pops in a little bit. But my message did not show up there. Let me see if I can take 2 seconds here and see if that'll go through. Doesn't look like Twitch is populating over there for the comments. We'll see if Hunter ends up being able to comment. Anyway, let's see over in the chat here. We got Pip in early. Happy Friday Eve, humans. Thanks, Pip, for stopping in. And man, I hope the messaging works today. I hope the messaging works. Messaging works over there on Noster. Thanks for popping in, Jim. I see you. Thank you. Grow Noster over there. Other than that, let's get going. What's in the cup today? We got GSD blend. We got more GSD blend. Maybe StreamYard needs a little bit of GSD blend to open up its eyes and start working as it should. Looks like Twitter is down again for me here. Intergalactic interwebs are just not working for me. Anyway, GSD blend in the cup this morning. Blend of a couple light roast beans that have a little higher caffeine content than what you're normally going to get in your everyday off-the-shelf coffee. It's not added extra. It's just naturally a little higher caffeinated because we picked beans that had a little bit extra and then roasted them extra light, so they didn't burn off any excess caffeine. Grab a bag today, give it a try. It's meant for those people to get up and get going. It'll get you a little amped up, but won't make you jittery. So try some today. GSD blend over at foodforestfarms.com. Use LOTS10, LOTS10 coupon code at checkout for 10% off. One-time coupon. Always free shipping over there. And you can find it all at foodforestfarms.com. Foodforestfarms.com. Great place to buy coffee and find other great stuff too. I need it. A little tired today. What up, Goza? How we doing? Thanks for stopping in there. Smash that like and the subscribe. Thanks a bunch again for stopping by. Were you here the other day? Were you around the other day? I can't remember. I get so many names flying through that vertical feed over there. I love you too. I love the fact that you're here in the chat, spending time with all of us. So yesterday, Corey and I and her parents ended up going to Shiloh Battlefield. So, if you don't know what that is, it's a Civil War battlefield here in Southwest Tennessee. I got a bunch of facts about it. This isn't going to be Jim says fuck Twix over there on Noster. Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Jim, but it's set up to go there, and I don't know why it suddenly stops. It is what it is. I got some stuff about Shiloh that I want to talk about today. I had never been there. We've been here for about a year and a half now, in this area. Goza says Jim doesn't know what he's talking about. Jim knows quite a bit what he's talking about. Jim knows about a lot of things because he's so old. He has a lot of years of accumulated knowledge, but he might have forgot a lot of it too, though. Jim, were you around for the Battle of Shiloh? I'll get to the years later, but I was curious if that was something that you participated in, maybe heard about on the news when it happened. But we've been here for a year and a half. I thought it was a little farther away than it was. And when we drove there, I was like, why haven't we been here before? Why haven't we taken the time to come here and check this out? I wish we had done it sooner. I really do. It was very interesting. It was, am I talking about Jim Crow? No, I'm not. It was very, very interesting. And we're going to go back for sure. Corey and I are going to go back for sure. It's unfortunate that for the first year here, when we weren't really pounding away on any projects or things like that, and we were looking for stuff to do, we didn't just go. Always had a reason not to. I no good reasons why not to, but always came up with a reason not to go or found something else to do. Excuse me. But yesterday with our parents here, we kind of stretched all the activities that we could think of out, and we needed something to do, and they're interested in museums and things of that nature, so we decided to go down and spend a day. Hey, Mr. Krabs, Krusty, how's it going? Thanks for stopping in. VK Sunset, I could subscribe to you if you hit that subscribe, maybe throw me a super chat or something. I could come back, subscribe to you, but I'm not going to do it in the middle of the show. And then is Corey is my beautiful wife. She is, and it's not spelled with a C anyway. So we decided to go and check it out. It was extremely close, like within a few. Thanks, VK Sunset, appreciate it. It was extremely close. It was, I don't know, like 17 miles from here. It was like 17. VK, I'll go through the new subs later today, and if you show up as a public sub, I'll hit you back. No problem. So when we got there, that was the first thing I noticed. It was super close. We had been to a restaurant like within 3 miles of it and didn't actually really know how close it was. No, it's not that way either, Goza. Nope. And so we get there, and it's kind of if you've never been there before, which we hadn't, you drive in, and it's not confusing. It's just like, well, what do we do here? It was a battlefield. It's a national park that or a national battlefield that they turned into a national park in 1893, I believe. So like 30 years after the war, excuse me. And so it's like, well, it's where they shot people. Well, like, what is there to see? What is there to do here? We had looked on the app or on the site, and there was an app for the National Park Service. And basically you could see there was a visitor center. There was a self-guided drive-through tour, like where you drive to all the points and you can get out and talk or get out and look. And there was an app that kind of played a little audio blurb every place you got on the trip. And then there was a self-guided walking tour where you can walk through. Hi, Live Eddie. Yeah, you can ask me a question. Depends on what you want to ask. You can get my attention with a super chat for sure. Usually, unless it's completely off the wall, that'll get your question answered for sure. So there was a self-guided walkthrough tour, and then in the afternoon, the park rangers had their choice. It seems like they had their choice. They got to decide what they do, whether they're going to do a demonstration of like how they fired a musket or another in-depth tour. something like that. So this is what was offered. And then periodically, I think it's more on weekends or when it's going to be busy. They do all sorts of other events there. So we didn't really know what to expect. We got there, we rolled in, we went to the visitor center. I figured, okay, well, that's where the information is. Do I support? Dude, wrong show. I'm not into identity politics. I don't give a two flying fucks. I don't give two flying fucks who you like, love, who you fuck. It does not fucking matter to me one bit. So do I support it? No, I don't care. I just don't fucking care. So we went to the visitor center, and we, as we're walking in, we're getting out of the truck, and there's these signs that tell like kind of the meaning of all the signs. You're sorry for asking. No, you're not. Like, what difference does it make? Why does it matter? So we're reading the signs and like different sign shapes and colors mean different things on the battlefield while you're walking around doing these tours. And we hear an announcement over the speaker is like the next showing of the Shiloh fiery. What was the name of the thing? Fiery Trial, I think is the movie made. The movie made about the battle and the battlefield. It was in a little theater there, and this is starting in 2 minutes, and we're like, what the fuck is this? So we walk in, and the park ranger at the desk is like super hurrying, and she's like she's this little old lady. She's like, here's your brochure, and here's your map, and here's this, and she's like, I gotta go start the movie. And we're like, well, where's the movie? She's like, follow me, and she like takes off across the room, and so we hustle our ass behind her. We go into this really cool so they take us in this little cool theater, and she runs up, she starts the movie. There's probably half a dozen people in there. And it was a really interesting movie. And if you're going to Shiloh, and I imagine most of the other battlefields, Civil War battlefields or National Park battlefields have something like this. They have something similar to the story of what went on. Go and see it first. Now, this movie started every hour on the hour, and it probably was like a half an hour to 45 minutes, I would guess. It was really interesting. It was reenactment-ish, the story of the 2-day Battle of Shiloh. I had known a little bit about it, not a whole lot. I had heard in passing we had hit different different things around the area. You pick up facts about the battle. Like it's big here. Like it was one of the pivotal battles in the Civil War and very early in the war. So people around here, I mean, rightly so, cling to what happened there. And so we watched the movie. I'm really glad we did. So when we went on the tour and we read the stuff on the placards and looked at the battlefields, we had an idea right fresh in our head what had happened. And obviously it was obvious that they made the movie in conjunction with the facts they brought to the table on the tour, because you would read things and it was like, oh yeah, I just heard that, oh, I just heard about this. So that was really cool. We watched the movie. There's a little bit of a museum in the visitor center. They're in the process of changing that. So some of the exhibits were there, some were not, but very interesting things in the exhibits. So we walked around there. We went outside and we decided we were going to go on the driving tour, the self-guided driving tour. 12.5 miles of roads crisscross back and forth through the battlefield. They had it set up really cool where, so the different placards they had placards to show where the different regiments and companies camped. They had they had placards that showed where they were on the first day of the battle, where they were on the second day of the battle. They were color coded for the North, the South, the Ohio regiment that came in. And then it was really cool because they positioned the placard. So if you were standing and reading it, you were facing the way the soldiers would have been facing when they were there at that time. And it was very detailed. The detail was a little shocking, actually. Like, they were down to the hour, to the half hour, really. So-and-so company 11 out of Ohio held this line from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. on Saturday the 7th, the 6th, Sunday the 7th. I can't remember. It was Sunday and Monday, the 6th and 7th. So it must have been Sunday the 6th. Example. But the record keeping during the battle must have been phenomenal. During the movie that they showed at the beginning, they had lots of diary excerpts from soldiers that were there, and the descriptions they used of the battle were vivid, to say the least. To say the least, it was no place I wanted to be, for sure, during that time. And then when we were actually there, like standing in the battlefield, it was really, there was a feeling about it. And I'm going to go through some statistics in a little while. But man, over 20,000 people were killed or injured or ended up missing from that 2-day battle. Like, over 20,000 people. There were 110,000 troops there. So just under a quarter, I think it turned out that, it was like 23,000 casualties and deaths. It turned out a quarter of the people that showed up there died, didn't leave. That's a lot of bodies. And when you were standing there and realizing how it was a big area, but not really. Like, when you look at the area, you're like, oh, well, this is a large area. And then you think about the fact that it was 100,000 people with cannons and muskets and all sorts of shit. Hey, go slow, come fast. How you doing? How you doing? Back again, huh? Back again. Oh, anyway, you realize you put 100,000 people and then 23,000 dead bodies in this area. And it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. It was kind of, there was a feeling there. There was like an aura there, and not into the big ghosty thing or anything like that. But when you were standing there looking around and looking at those placards and realizing that, you know, a 17-year-old kid, a 19-year-old kid could have been standing there, and a cannonball could have come and just lopped his head off. It was crazy to realize that they battled back and forth in this area. So over 2 days, the lines pushed and moved back and forth. On the second day, they were fighting on top of people, dead people, some dead, some still alive, some injured. One of the very vivid things I remember about the movie specifically was they talked about the first night. Go slow, come fast, man. I appreciate that. He says, you know, honestly, I come to troll, but you acknowledge me every time. I'm subscribing because you're awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. We're all here to have fun, man. It's all good. It's all good. I can't say that I don't do the same thing every once and again. But the way they described the first night. So in the Civil War, they didn't really fight a whole lot at night. It gets dark. There weren't a whole lot of lights. It's not like they had night vision or shit like that. So they kind of rested at night. They restocked things. They did small scouting patrols, things like that. They didn't really fight. And they said the moon was super bright that night, between Sunday and Monday. And so it had like a kind of a glow on the field. Then there were camps, they had their fires, it kind of lit it up a little bit more. And a thunderstorm rolled through that night. And thunderstorms in April in Tennessee can be pretty intense. We've been here for 2 years to experience it now. They said the lightning would light up the battlefield. The thunder mixed in with the cannon fire because both sides were just randomly shooting cannons all night. Gunships on the Tennessee for the Union were lobbing cannonballs at the battlefield every half an hour, all night. And they said you could hear the screams and the moans and the injured all over the battlefields. All over the battlefields. People just screaming all night in between the thunderclaps and the cannon fire. And it's just like, I don't know. They said this was pretty early in the war, and they said this was the first battle for a lot of these folks. A lot of the South, a lot of the Army of Mississippi. There was a lot of their first fighting. A lot of the Union soldiers in Grant's army. It was their first battle, and I can only imagine just being there overnight. And then the fact that they went and back and forth the next day, it wasn't like they moved the lines down the road 1,000 yards and kept progressing and beating the enemy back. It was a stalemate for 2 days, where they would push 100 yards across the field and then get pushed back. Well, there's bodies dropping in that field every time they battle, and they're fighting on top of them. It's just the scene didn't. It just was pretty powerful when you thought about it and then stood there. So that was interesting. We drove around. Corey and I are definitely going back. I mean, there's just no question about it. It was really interesting. So between the facts I picked up there and then more I looked into it after, I want to talk about a little bit what went on there. but first, when we got done, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. When we got done, we were planning on taking Corey's parents to our fourth. We had 4 restaurants we wanted to take them to. The 4 restaurants we really found and we enjoy around here. Pizza, Charlie's Pizza, check. They loved it. It's fantastic. Actually, it's better than when he was in his truck at his new pizza shop. Mexican restaurant down here in town. We got to go out with our friends and have Mexican with them. They really enjoyed that. Where else did we go, Corey? Hillbillies. Oh, we went and got chicken wings. That's the chicken wing place. And then we saved Earl's burger place that has great baked potatoes. We saved that for Wednesday because I've talked about it before. Places around here have the weirdest hours. The traditional Monday, Tuesday close for restaurants. That's what I thought it was. And that's what it was for the longest time. The longest time was they were closed Monday, Tuesday. They were open Wednesday through Sunday. So we showed up and the place is like dark. Yesterday was Wednesday, right? Yesterday was Wednesday. And we're like, what the hell? What's going on? Well, we find out, we look up the hours again, and it looks like they're only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday now. This place was busy. I don't understand why these places aren't open. I mean, I get money, I get profits and everything, but observing all the places that are closed, man, all I wanted was a fucking hamburger on a Wednesday. So you got a super popular restaurant, and it's just closed all the time. Everybody's closed. Like, take my fucking money. I want a hamburger. Take my money. But anyway, we ended up having steaks back at home, so that was all right. It wasn't a big deal, but disappointed that we didn't get to take them to another one of our favorite restaurants. And now I don't know if it's really one of my favorite restaurants because they're never fucking open. Never open. Go slow, come fast says I want a cheeseburger every day. I get a what is that called, Corey? The small block. So this is a garage themed, like an auto mechanic garage themed restaurant. So everything is like cars and shit like that. It's a gimmicky thing. It works. Their food is phenomenal. I wish they were just open more. I really do. But anyway, back to Shiloh. Let's talk a little bit about the Battle of Shiloh. So you're gonna get a little history lesson this morning. Just a little history lesson. Grab some random facts, some things that stuck out in my head, and some other stuff I looked into after the fact. Just like, let's hit the vital statistics on this battle first. The date of the battles, the dates, I guess, of the battles were April 6th and 7th, 1862. 1862. So what is that? 160 some 160 some years ago. The result, the Union ended up winning the battle. The Union ended up winning under the command of Ulysses S. Grant, Major General at the time, Ulysses S. Grant, and then with the assist from the Ohio Army, commanded by Don Carlos Buell. The Confederacy was mainly made up of the Army of Mississippi, and commanded by Albert Sidney Johnston, who ended up being killed, and then PGT Beauregard took over for him after the fact. Turns out that Albert Sidney Johnston, being a general killed in battle, was the highest ranking officer in the Civil War that was killed right there at the beginning of the war. Approximate people on site, the Union Army had the approximate population when the two units combined at 66,800 troops, and the Confederates had approximately 44,700 troops. So roughly 110,000 troops on site at Shiloh. And like I said, crisscrossing back and forth through the battlefield was 12 and a half miles. So it wasn't ungodly big area where these 100,000 men were trying to all kill each other. Casualties and losses, the Union soldiers lost 13,047 people, 1,754 of them killed, 8,408 wounded, and another 2,800 missing or captured. The Confederates lost 10,699. That was about 1,700 killed. So they both had almost exactly the same amount of troops killed, another 8,000 wounded, and 959 missing or captured. Total casualties for the war. Jim says, is there going to be a quiz? No quiz. Just kind of let the numbers rattle around in your brain a little bit, and you will you'll know that you'll get the significance of like how many people. So total casualties for the war, 23,746. That's like I said, about a quarter of the people that showed up were either killed, maimed, or missing, captured. Let's see. It was an early battle. Early battle was never supposed to really happen. So the way things went down, Ulysses S. Grant was bringing troops down the Tennessee River in Tennessee, West Tennessee here, to head to Corinth. Corinth, Mississippi is about 40 minutes south of here, just under the border into Mississippi. There are major railroads that run through Corinth. That was Grant's target. He wanted to get down to Corinth. He wanted to take control of the railroads, which ran east and west and north and south. So if they could take control of the railroads in Corinth, they were going to really sever the supply lines for the Confederacy. And this was early in the war. Like I said, the war went on 3 years after this battle. So they were on their way to take these railroads over, to really split the Confederacy into east and west supply lines. It would have really, it was the main target. So they were moving troops down. Go slow, come fast. This is going to do ancient history, conquistadors and Aztec, Mayan, because that stuff interests me. I am kind of interested in digging a little bit in my free time on the ancient civilizations way before that, actually. Really prehistory, the shit they don't tell you in the history books, because it would mess up all their narrative about the Indians being the first people here and that bullshit. So that's kind of what I started digging into. But this Civil War battlefield just tripped my mind. So they were heading down the river. Grant was moving his troops and supplies on steamboats. They had 12 dozen or more steamboats coming down the Tennessee River, supplying the South and on their way to Corinth. When they got past Savannah here, there was a nice place to offload. It was called Pittsburgh Landing. They landed their steamboats there and started unloading, and then they were going to march south to Corinth. They unloaded. They started to set up camp there, and the Confederates decided that, we know Grant had another army, the Army of Ohio, commanded by Buell, were coming from Nashville, and they were coming over land. They were going to meet up here at Pittsburgh Landing and then push south together to make the offensive on the railroad in Corinth. So Grant got here. They unloaded their stuff. They were kind of waiting for Buell, who was coming across land, and it was going to take him longer to get there. He was supposed to get there within a couple days, so they were just going to hang out, set up camp, be ready to push down to Corinth when they arrived. The Confederate found out that they were kind of staging here and had scouts letting them know how far Buell was away. And they knew they had a little time where Grant was going to be sitting and didn't have his full forces. So they decided to push up from Corinth north and engage Grant. Grant was under orders to hold fire. Their main objective was to get to Corinth and take that over. So they were aware that they would probably been tried to goad into fighting, little scout troops here and there. So they thought that they were just going to have to fend that off. They gave them the orders not to engage. So to protect yourself, but not to engage. The South figured this out. The Confederate figured this out and pushed north. What's up, Britton Russell? Thanks for stopping back. So when they did, they engaged them. The Confederates' surprise attack on Grant as they were just setting camp, that's what the Battle of Shiloh ended up being. It's also called the Battle of Pittsburgh Landing. The name Shiloh comes from a small church that was on the area where they were camping. They have a replica of the log cabin church that was there. It was destroyed during the battle by cannon fire and muskets and blah, 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 the whole thing. It was interesting place. Looking at the terrain, looking at what they had to fight in, the ravines, the fields, the woods, imagining it, the tour, the self-guided tour said that there's a lot of undergrowth, but at the time that this happened, this was all farmland. This was all, they had livestock running on this. They didn't fence their livestock in. So all the undergrowth was kind of, was consumed by the animals. So it was pretty clear. You could see through it, but it was trees and thick. There were areas of really thick trees. There were areas of thinner, larger trees, and then open farm fields. So it was, you could see quite a ways. So on Sunday, the Confederates launched attack on Grant. He basically held his position, and the Confederates really owned the battle early. They pushed Grant back. He was surprised. He was taken off guard, and that was their point of it. They had an advantage in troop numbers for the Confederates because Buell hadn't arrived yet. So they pushed hard. They fought a lot that first day. Started right at dawn, fought all the way till dusk. They pushed Grant back. They pushed the Union soldiers back. They actually at one point surrounded some in what they called the Hornet's Nest. It was a really thick thicket of trees that they holed up in this thing called the Sunken Road. It was an old road that had been there that sunken down and made like a natural ravine that they were able to kind of defend themselves in. And the trees were so thick that the Union soldiers were protecting themselves in this little ravine. And as the people would come, or the Confederate soldiers would come and try to attack them, anytime they popped out a tree, they were able to shoot them. They held off as long as they could. They held off hours and hours in this onslaught by the Confederates, just had them pretty much surrounded. And then the Confederates decided to just line up cannons indiscriminately around this little area and just shoot cannons into it. Eventually, they surrendered. I got to stand in the spot that the Union surrendered. That regiment surrendered. Like obviously, Grant didn't surrender. The Union won the battle, but they took a bunch of them prisoner on day one. And as day one of the battle came to close, Sidney Johnson, the commander of the Confederate, sent a letter to Frederick Davis, president of the Confederacy. For some reason, Frederick isn't sitting in my head right. Sent him a letter and said, a victory is assured here. They captured the troops at the Hornet's Nest, and Grant was pretty much retreating. And we will win this tomorrow. Little did he know, towards the end of the day on Sunday, Buell's troops arrived as they marched from Nashville across the Tennessee River. They arrived and met up with Grant's troops, where they reinforced their flanks and were able to go more on an offensive the next day. When the next day started battle, it started again, and like I said, they pushed back and forth across these battlefields and fought over dying and dead and maimed people, which is just it trips my brain out, man. I know in war you fight over your fallen, but this was a significant amount. They said the Jefferson Davis, excuse me. Yes, thank you. Frederick Davis was a whole different story. Thanks, Jefferson Davis. I just had a mind fart there, and I appreciate you coming to my rescue, man. So Albert Johnson didn't get it right for sure. And the man ended up dying. So he was a man of the troops. He was their rallying cry. He was the educated military man that had a lot of folks that were militia, were farmers, and he rallied them. He had their spirits high. He was a great leader. he ended up getting shot, and they didn't notice it. It was a stray bullet that hit the back of his knee and clipped an artery. He knew something was wrong, and then they got him kind of off to the side, and 20 minutes later he bled out. So he died, and they feel that was probably a pivotal point in the battle, losing that general. The people that took over after him, Beauregard, wasn't as a charismatic leader. The death of Johnston came when the tides were kind of turning. It was a real morale kick in the ass. Really knocked down the Confederates. They felt that their leader was gone. They were starting to retreat. They were being overrun, and it kind of spiraled out. Communications got severed. It got wonky as to they weren't resupplying their ammo. Regiments were going missing. Everything broke down when they lost their leader, which is, it happens, and it doesn't happen that often. Like I said, he was the highest ranking officer to die in the Civil War. Happened this early in this battle. So they fought back and forth on Monday morning, pushed and pushed back and forth, and then finally Grant and Buell overtook the Confederates, pushed them down. They made a retreat. They retreated back to Corinth, and were there to kind of they were there to regroup and fight another day. I still haven't answered your question about which history I'm going to dive into. I don't really do a whole lot of history on the show, man. It's more of a random topic kind of show. This just happens to be what I did yesterday. I went and was there. I could probably dive into some other history at some point. I'll put it on my list to bring up at other times. I appreciate the interest. But I don't know which I'll talk about there. I don't know which one I'll talk about. So some other stuff about the battle there. It was the first major battle in the Western theater of the American Civil War. It was very pivotal in securing West Tennessee for the Union. It got its name from a small church, like I mentioned. It's called the Shiloh Meeting Place. It was near the battlefield. We got to stand there. It's kind of where the Union troops were camping near. That's where they were when the surprise attack came from the Confederates. They were all kind of camping, and when you stand there and you see where the river is and you see where the church, the old church building is, you realize that they pretty much just offloaded 60,000 people. Well, sorry, it was like it was less. It was like 40,000. And their supplies and their rations and their tents, and they set up camp right on the river. Basically, they weren't in the water. They came up the hill, they set up their shit, and that's where they sat. They were. Who was it? My dog's over there howling, dreaming, scared the shit out of me. I was like, what was that? Anyway, so they unloaded and they set up next to this church, and it became a pivotal building. There was something about, and we didn't really put it together. My wife and I both saw different parts of the story, but the church had two doors, and it was pretty significant. And I believe it was because what I thought I put together after the fact was they were bringing in these injured troops from the two different doorways, and the battle happened to be coming from the other way. It was like protected entrance, and then they took care of a lot of the wounded inside this small log cabin church. Battle began with a surprise attack by the Confederate forces on April 6, 1862. Union forces were initially pushed back and held defensive line, nicknamed the Hornet's Nest. And they nicknamed that because the bullets, so many bullets were flying by. Multiple soldiers described it in their journals as it sounded like hornets flying around. The bullets whizzing past you just sounded like bullets hitting the trees and whizzing by. The fighting was so intense that the soldiers later claimed that the water in Bloody Pond turned red with blood. I stood next to the pond, and the pond and the description of what happened at this pond and this battlefield of these were just farm fields, and they're still named by the farmer that lived there. To actually stand there and see the length that they were talking about, the 200 yards that they battled over for 2 days, basically. One afternoon was for 3 or 4 hours. They pushed, and the Confederates pushed the one way, and then the next day, 3 hours it took to fight and claim back that 200-yard wide field. Blood Pond was right there. It's not a huge pond. It's probably, I don't know, 50 feet across, round pond. They said it was red because of all the blood draining into it from the farmer field. This was the drain off field for the farm. That's what it was. It's like the collection pond. It ran red. Major General Don Carlos Buell's Army of the Ohio arrived to reinforce Grant on the night of the 6th. That's probably the only reason the Union ended up winning. Let me see. The battle resulted in more casualties than all previous American wars combined. It really set the stage for how violent the Civil War was going to get. A lot of people died. That's a lot of people in 2 days. After the battle, Grant faced severe criticism for being unprepared for the Confederate attack. Like I said, they were just moving troops to attack Corinth. They were on their way to fight in Corinth. There was nothing in Shiloh. There was nothing at Pittsburgh Landing that would have said, this is going to be where the Confederates are going to make their stand. There was nothing there that says, oh, we're going to unload. And it was actually the opposite. They felt that this was a great staging area to get ready to make the push to Corinth. This was a great place for them to come by water, unload, wait for Buell to arrive by land, and then push together to Corinth. And it didn't turn out that way. What's going over there on Noster, my man? Thanks for stopping. Hola to you. It didn't happen as they had expected, and the Confederates decided to surprise them. So interesting, but Grant wasn't prepared. Grant was not prepared for that by any means. He actually commanded the battle from a steamship. Commanded it from a steamship out on the Tennessee River. Let me see on my list here. The battle shattered the myth of the Southern invincibility and showed that the war would be long and bloody. The South had pretty much had their way. The Confederate had their way early in the battles. This really showed that wasn't going to be as easy as everyone thought, and really kind of that early in the war set a tone, both for mass violence and the fact that the Union was probably going to do all right. I talked about the sunken road where they bunkered down inside the Hornet's Nest, basically a natural bunker that they were able to hole up in. Future President James A. Garfield participated in the battle as a Union officer. Confederate General P.G.T. Beauregard took command after Johnston died, and that was the beginning of the end. That was definitely the beginning of the end for the battle for the Confederates. Johnston was Johnston. There was an interesting bit about him in the movie. He rode with his troops. He was right there, and it probably ended up costing him his life. But when the Confederates overtook the Hornets' Nest and overran the camp that they had been camping, the soldiers started kind of plundering the camp. It wasn't normal. It wasn't respectful battle to go and just ravage everything that was there. Johnston rode up and saw it was more of a thing for your infantrymen. Officers, it wasn't something officers did. And Johnston rode up and saw an officer going through a tent, going through personal effects, stealing guns and food. They hadn't eaten in 3 days. So yeah, I mean, we were probably hungry, grabbing food. But Johnston rode up on his horse and saw an officer pillaging the camp, and he was upset by it. And then he thought again, and he grabbed a tin cup from one of the camps, and he said, "Let this be the spoils of our victory today. Let this be my spoils, excuse me." And he held the cup up, and until he died, that was basically a rallying cry for his troops. That had them pumped up. They knew they were overwhelmed by Grant. They were trying to have this surprise attack before Buell got there, and he rallied them as a leader. And this cup was a symbol of this. And they actually had a display tin cup in the visitor center because of this. He would rally his troops and ride down the line and rattle their bayonets with his tin cup, kind of like a prisoner in a jail cell. And this was how he got them motivated. So that was interesting. That was interesting to me that he switched his philosophy on raiding the enemy's supplies and turned that into a positive for his troops. The battle marked the combat debut of the 16th U.S. Infantry Regiment, and that still exists today, 130 years later. Shiloh was the first battle that both sides used sharpshooters extensively, which is interesting. Is definitely changes in warfare there. They talked about the cannons, and so they had just an absolute boatload of cannons still on site, and they had them pointed in the directions they were pointed when they were using them. And to stand next to the cannons and look, and some of these were just indiscriminately fired at a location where they felt that there were other troops. That's really ultimately how they overran the Hornets' Nest and took the Union prisoners the first day. Was they ended up rolling cannons onto different sides of this area that they were stacked up in, and just started lobbing cannonballs at them. And they had displays of the different types of cannon ammo that they used. They had in the visitor center. And the one thing that they used that just looked like it was absolutely terrifying to me was called grape shot. And if you ever shot a shotgun, or you know what bird shot or buckshot is in a shotgun, it's basically a shell with a bunch of BBs in it. Well, think about that on steroids with a bunch of 3-inch cannonballs in a shell together, double layered. So it looked like 1, 2, 3. There was like 8, maybe half a dozen to 10 little cannonballs all together that would come firing out of the cannon and just disperse like birdshot. I can't imagine getting hit by one of these things. They talked about him hitting the trees and the trees exploding, and the shrapnel from the trees being just as dangerous as the cannonballs flying at you. Literally, you could have been sitting behind a tree scared shitless because you were trying to hide, and a cannonball could come tearing through the tree and knock your fucking head off, or your arm, or your leg, or go through your chest. Yeah, crazy amount of carnage. and blood and dead bodies. After the battle, it became a logistical nightmare to deal with the dead bodies, to deal with those 20,000 plus injured and dead. They did mass grave burials, and it appeared to me, and this was probably because the Union was victorious, but the mass graves were all Confederates. I think the Union might have taken the time to bury their dead individually. There is a huge national cemetery there that works that has a ton of original gravestones. Like, you can tell they're old. They're right around that time. But the Confederates were mainly buried in mass graves, several of them. So basically, dig a big hole and throw in all the bodies and fill her up and cover it up. Yeah, it was definitely worth the money because it was free. I mean, nothing's free. We know how it gets paid for, but no entry fee there at all, which is great. Corey and I have talked about probably going back and hopefully at some point learning enough about one of the individual units and following them through the battlefield, following them from, like I said, the placards are very detailed in the times that each group was, where they were, the way they were facing, the way they were progressing or retreating. You could literally go, and if you had the history of how the unit went through the battle, you could start at 6 a.m. on Sunday morning and follow them through the 2 days. I think that would be really cool. I definitely will be digging deeper into the history of Shiloh. Like I said, I knew very little when I showed up yesterday. I knew enough. I knew that there had been about 100,000 people there. I knew Grant had commanded the Union Army. I didn't know much of the details. And the more I find out, the more interesting it gets. So I'm excited to be this close. When we move out to our cabin site, it'll still be close enough to make this a day trip. No questions asked. So I'm excited. Another thing that they have there, which is very coincidental, is an Indian Mound national monument. That's something that's in this area. They don't know a lot about these civilizations, and go slow, come fast. Here you go. Here's your ancient history. They didn't have any written records, so they don't know much. But they do know that there was a civilization that settled along the Tennessee River in a 20-mile stretch here, right around Savannah, right around Shiloh. That they built mounds for various purposes. They still, like I said, no written records. They can't really pin down what the deal was. But they have these mounds, lots of them, several in each of the small communities along the river. They're flat top mounds. They believe that like the chief of the tribe, the religious building, important members of the tribe got to build their homes on top of these mounds. They also had burial mounds. They built their living structures were built in a dome. And they believe that they might have been able to withstand time and rot and end up forming earth over the top of the mound, so that there's a bunch of mounds. But these people were there about 800 years ago, so 650 years before the Civil War battle. It's right in the middle of the park. They happened to unload at Pittsburgh Landing right by one of these mound settlements. The crazier part about it is they have records of these people being there about 800 years before. They have no idea where they came from or where they went to or why. They also have determined that they actually resettled the area and had similar building techniques and ideas to a civilization that was there 2,000 years ago. So there was a group of natives that lived there 2,000 years ago that also built mound systems and lived on top of them. So that's kind of interesting. So 2,000 years ago, they disappeared. They don't know why. They don't have written records, or they haven't determined why or where they went, again, where they came from. And then 800 years ago, it happened again. Same style, same type of things. Jim says the original snowbirds. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They just disappeared. I'm guessing flooding. That's my guess. Why not? They're like right on the river. But I don't know. I'm not an ancient historian. Maybe I'll become one. Go Slow says he wants me to do more ancient history. I should do a history segment now and then. This was pretty fun. But anyway, guys, go check out your national parks. Go check out a battlefield. I wouldn't have thought my wife, and she's interested in all sorts of things, but I wouldn't have thought she would have been that excited about a Civil War battlefield. You learn something new about your spouse even 15 years in. I mean, she was definitely more excited about the safari zoo the day before. But she was very interested, and interested to go back and interested to learn more, which is great, which is fantastic. It's great learning together and enjoying stuff like that together, because we can share things and spend time together doing the things we enjoy together. But definitely go back. If there's something near you like that, if there's a national park, if there's an exhibit, if there's anything, even if you have to pay a little bit, but especially if it's free, take the time to go see it. We were really talking yesterday that when you live near stuff, you don't appreciate it. When you live near some place that people travel distances to come and see. People travel from all over the country and really all over the world, from what I understand, to come to Shiloh, to come and check out the battlefield and then go to Corinth. And that's another place that we're going to go, where there is another national park there. We'll continue the journey down to the next battle at some point and go explore Corinth, which will be fun too. A new place, the same similar setup, a different battle, different time, different story. But when you have things that people come and see, make sure you go and see them. There's a reason people travel from all over the world. It might not be a big deal to you because it's in your backyard and you grew up around it. You grew up next to it, looking at it or hearing about it. But you've never been there. Take a minute and go check out why these people travel so far. You might be surprised what you find. We put off going and checking out this battlefield for a year and a half until her parents came and we needed something to go do. We had talked about going, and we finally needed something to do with her parents here, and we went, and we wish we had gone sooner. Don't wish you have gone sooner. If you take the time to go to a monument, like Go Slow lives in San Francisco, says I've been there whole life. People come from all over, nothing special to you. But at least you know at that point. I really wish we had gone the third weekend we were here when we had talked about it. Hey, there's a really big battlefield here. I would be a lot more knowledgeable about it at this point if I had gone then. We would have probably spent a lot of time just walking there. And instead of driving to go hike somewhere else, gone in and used the walking and the hiking trails there. Jim says they all take donations even if it's free. Yes, they do take donations. They do. And even if it's just for coffee money for the volunteers. That is true. That is true. But if you can't afford to put money in it, if you can't afford to make a donation, go and experience. That's why it's there, is for you to go and experience it. I don't know. I think it's a great idea. I'm excited to go again. I'm excited to go to Corinth. And it's probably going to spur a little bit of Civil War research, just because of how interesting the story was over here. I grew up in Western New York, so Gettysburg and Pennsylvania, and a lot of Civil War history there. I didn't know really a whole lot about the Civil War in this area. So excited to learn new shit. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here today. In-laws are taking off this afternoon. We're going to go spend some time with them before they pack up and head out. It's been a great visit. We'll talk a little bit about it tomorrow, and the fact that Corey and I got called fantastic hosts. They had a great time every day, and I don't know if they're just saying that because we're their kids. Their daughter, their daughter couldn't do anything wrong. She's like the baby Jesus. She couldn't do anything wrong. Me, I'm a little questionable. I'm taking off. I'm getting out of here, guys. I hope you guys go slow. I do have a huge weenus. I have an absolutely enormous weenus. I'm gonna wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like, the share, the subscribe, all of that. To return value for value, please consider joining one of the YouTube membership tiers or listening on any value for value platform like Podverse or Fountain.fm. You can find more about me at thelotsproject.com or comfreyroots.com, where you can pick up all your comfrey roots to grab your to get your little side hustle growing. Have a good day. Go slow. Thanks for stopping and hanging out. All my partner companies, affiliate discount codes, promotional codes, all of that, and a ton of more information. Guys, it's Thursday. Knock it out of the park. Friday Eve. We're gonna be we'll be wrapping it up today, get into Friday, and then rolling into the weekend. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and we will catch up with you tomorrow.